Hey guys, it's Meal Before Me, and I'm back with another food review. This time we're checking out EveryPlate. It's a meal kit delivery service that boasts simple, delicious recipes at affordable prices, and they deliver throughout the United States. It's owned by the HelloFresh Group, which of course owns HelloFresh, as well as Green Chef, which serves both the US and the UK, Chef's Plate, which serves Canada, Factor and U Foods, which both deliver ready-made meals, Good Chop, which is a butcher box delivery service for meat and seafood, and the Pet's Table, which is a meal delivery service for dogs. Because it's owned by the HelloFresh Group, EveryPlate is often described as being the cheaper version of HelloFresh, with frequent sales and discount programs for students, veterans, teachers, medical professionals, government employees, and more. I'll link to a page about that in the description so you can see if you qualify. And while they don't cater to specific dietary needs like some plans do, their weekly menu has over 30 options to choose from. With that, I'm excited to finally be back reviewing for you guys in 2025. And as always, I'm going to walk you through everything from ordering and the unboxing to my taste test in real time. To get started, I went to EveryPlate.com. Like most of these sites, there's an offer you can click on to save money. This one is a winter sale where meals are $1.99, so I'm clicking on that. The first page is where you pick your preferences. It defaults to meat and veggie, but you can switch it to Smart and Fit, Quick and Easy, Family Faves, or Veggie. And these preferences don't block you from being able to choose from the entire menu, it just curates your suggestions. I'm a meat and veggies gal, you've heard it a million times, so that's what I'm selecting. Next, you choose the number of people and the number of meals. It has options for 2, 4, or 6 people, and you all know the joke. The only ones trying this are me and myself, so I'm choosing 2 people. And I try to go with the maximum number of meals each time, so I can review as many things for you as possible, so I'm choosing 5 meals. That brings the total right now to $59.90, which is $5.99 per serving, but the discount brings it down to $19.90, which is definitely the cheapest box I've reviewed so far. Once you're happy with your choice, click Select this plan, and it takes you to a screen to create an account before asking for your mailing address. There's an extra field to provide delivery instructions like entering a gate code, and it has a 35-character max right now, so you'll have to be brief. Looking at the order summary, it shows a $10.99 delivery fee. A lot of these services offer free delivery, at least for your first box, but with the discount I'm already getting here, paying for shipping isn't a big deal. So my grand total for 5 meals for 2 people, otherwise known as 10 meals, is $30.89. Once I entered my address, the shipping details appeared. I ordered this on March 4th, and the delivery date defaulted to Sunday, March 9th, and every Sunday thereafter. If the date doesn't work for you, you can click Edit to choose a different one. In my case, that was the earliest, and weekends work, so I left it as is. There's also a drop-down to choose your preferred delivery time, but the only option is between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., so I don't know why that's there unless the option does change depending on where you're located. From here, clicking Next takes you to payment where you can use a debit or credit card or PayPal. And they note that you won't be charged until 4 days prior to the delivery date. Since my delivery was in a few days anyway, I was charged immediately. And like I've mentioned before, I'm always turned off by services that make me enter my contact information before choosing my meals, let alone asking me to pay first. And I know I can view the menu ahead of time from the link in the main navigation, which is a huge step up from services that bury their menu, trying to funnel you blindly towards checkout instead. But you often can't see the prices on that menu or navigate the entire menu as easily as you can while ordering. And even when that's not the case, I still take issue with the practice itself. It's not necessary to make you enter your information first. They just want to have your data whether you go through with the purchase or not. And I've reviewed services that don't do that, so I won't defend it by claiming everyone does. Regardless, after paying, it confirmed creating my account and offered a $15 credit for sharing EveryPlate with a friend. You'll notice that on this page, it says the first delivery will be on Saturday, even though it said Sunday before. I don't know what that's about, but either day is okay for me. And like other services, you can edit the order until midnight. Now for the fun part, picking the meals. As expected, it pre-selected 5 meals based on my preferences, but I want to choose myself, so I clicked Edit Meals. There were 26 options plus staff picks that looked like they might be add-ons. At the top, you can filter the menu by tabs like classic plates, pasta and noodles, or veggie, or you can click the Sort and Filter button, which pops out a tab with a few options like ingredients to avoid. Browsing the menu, I noticed that meals with the 15 minutes or less tag or the oven bake tag cost an extra $2.99 per serving, which basically sounds like you're paying more for the convenience of something being faster to cook, and I'm not really a fan of that. There are also premium meals that cost an extra $4.99 per serving. And as I've said before, I haven't come across a service where paying for so-called premium ingredients was worth it, because it always puts the meals in restaurant price territory, and at that point, I'd rather just order from a restaurant. That said, some services do a better job balancing premium options with regular ones than others. Here, with the exception of the burger and meatloaf, all of the beef options cost more, and there was an emphasis on pork. I'm not really that into pork, which brings me to substitutions. You can swap proteins in some meals, or add protein to meals that don't have it, like this farmer's market linguine, where you can add chicken or shrimp. You can also swap sides, which isn't something I think I've seen in my reviews yet, like the meatloaf with potato wedges, where you can increase the number of potatoes, or swap them out entirely for broccoli or green beans. I think that's fantastic, because when I'm not that excited about a meal, it's typically because I don't like the side that comes with it. Just remember when adding and substituting that the price you see is per serving. So if you chose a plan for 4 people, that's 4 servings, meaning any extra costs should be multiplied by 4. Clicking on the recipes, all of the meals have the nutritional values, ingredients, and instructions listed if you want to know exactly what you're getting into ahead of time, though the pop-up also includes add-ons that you can buy, like salad. And when you add a meal to your box, it shows its customizable options whether you need them or not. So they're definitely trying to upsell you where they can, which makes sense given how low the price is compared to other services. I was disappointed that there was no fish, but I did like the recipes overall. They were basic enough to appeal to a wide range of people, while still offering a few things I didn't expect. Another plus is that it let me add an extra meal, so despite the max of 5 shown on the plan page, I could have 6. However, I noticed when I went into my count settings after finishing the order that my plan was now set to 6 meals per week instead of 5. So if you add extra meals to your box beyond the plan you chose, make sure you go into your count settings afterwards to edit that back down if you need to. Now, I wanted to show you a variety of meal types, so after going back and forth, I chose the oven-baked crispy sesame parm chicken, white bean tomato stew, Tex-Mex marinated pork tacos, where I substituted the pork for chicken, smothered and stuffed meatloaf, the sweet sesame pork bowl, and chicken scallopini, where I substituted the broccoli for green beans. Like HelloFresh, EveryPlate also has a market you can order additional items from. It's nowhere near as extensive as I remember the HelloFresh market being, but you may still want to comb through it. So my total for everything, once all was said and done, was $44.20. With the ordering done, future me will be back for the unboxing. In the meantime, if you enjoy my food reviews and want to see more of them, please subscribe and like this video. It tells YouTube that my channel is worth sharing, and I want to grow it so I can afford to bring you more reviews you'll love. The box arrived on Sunday as expected with email confirmation. It was delivered by Jitsu, which is one of those third-party carriers where drivers sign up to deliver packages, kind of like DoorDash. The only time I ever have a delivery issue doing these reviews is when the company uses one of those carriers rather than FedEx or UPS, so I was worried about it. And I was right to be, since when I got the delivery confirmation, the photos showed that the package was delivered outside of where I live rather than being brought to my home. Luckily, the driver immediately realized their mistake after confirming the delivery and brought the box where it needed to be. I didn't even have to contact them. I did add in the delivery instructions not to confuse that area that's not my home for my home, just in case. So I think what happened is that they dropped the box, saw the note after that, and picked it back up again. Either way, the box arrived without issue. It was 15 inches long, 11 inches wide, and 14 inches high. I don't know the weight. Opening the box, there were 6 large recipe cards, and underneath, all of the ingredients were in a smaller box with handles, except for the proteins, which were in a bag with an ice pack underneath that. The ice pack was still frozen, and the proteins were refrigerator cold. I liked the size and sturdiness of the small box, by the way, so I held on to it for storing produce. Since hearing that EveryPlate is like a cheaper version of HelloFresh, I assumed there would be differences that lower the cost, and not separating the ingredients for each recipe is probably one of them. So I went through and divvied it up myself. While everything is labeled, it still takes a while to confirm which packets go with what and how many, especially when the measurement units aren't consistent for some things. Like, it may say X tablespoons of an ingredient in the list, but it comes in a packet that says X ounces. There's also the tiny issue of weight for produce that isn't packaged if you have more than one recipe using it. For example, if you had one recipe that called for 6 ounces of broccoli and another that called for 10 ounces, you'd either have to weigh those out yourself or eyeball it. I'd rather deal with all of that than a higher price, but it's still something something to consider. Since I didn't want to waste Ziploc bags or take out containers for stuff I was going to be using immediately anyway, I cut a large plastic recycling bag into 6 squares and used them to create a baggie for each recipe instead. That's what you'll see me putting things in. As usual, I was looking for any missing, damaged, or bad ingredients, and any notable discrepancies in amounts compared to what I should have received. The quality was fine, minus a lime that had seen better days, but there was a problem. 2 of my recipes called for 12 ounces of potatoes, which means I should have gotten 24 ounces. Not only did I not get that, I only got 10 ounces. So one recipe was out of luck and the other was shortchanged. That's a really big deal to me, and I wonder if EveryPlate not separating ingredients by recipe increases the odds of that happening, or if this was a fluke. Regardless, I don't have any potatoes lying around to make up the difference, so of the 2 meals that needed them, I decided the meatloaf could do without it. For the oven-baked crispy sesame parm chicken, they included the oven-ready tray, sesame seeds, shredded carrots, edamame, 10 ounces of chicken cutlets, coleslaw mix, garlic powder, Parmesan cheese, panko breadcrumbs, and sesame dressing. Each recipe mentions up front what you'll need to provide, and that's been pretty standard for all the services I've reviewed. So I don't normally pay attention to that when I'm ordering because it's always something I have all the time anyway, like salt, pepper, oil, and butter. So I was surprised to see mayonnaise listed as something I needed. I had some, but that wasn't guaranteed, and all of the services I've reviewed that had mayo in a recipe included it. So consider this my friendly PSA not to assume that you'll have what you need. Double check what the recipe says before you order. The white bean tomato stew included an onion, scallions, garlic, a tomato, tomato paste, Italian seasoning, half a cup of feta, a carton of cannellini beans, 2 slices of white bread, and veggie stock concentrate. Also, I'm showing you a garlic bulb, but this recipe only calls for 2 cloves. Other recipes I got also use garlic, so I won't be showing the bulb again. Just know that I'm using cloves from the same bulb for all of them. The Tex-Mex marinated pork tacos included an onion, a tomato, Tex-Mex paste, a lime, 10 ounces of chicken cutlets, which I substituted for the pork, garlic, flour tortillas, and sour cream. The smothered and stuffed meatloaves included an onion, fry seasoning, pepper jack cheese, 1 slice of white bread, 8 ounces of ground beef, a green bell pepper, and Dijon mustard. Aside from the basics like butter and oil, you need to provide brown sugar and ketchup. The sweet sesame pork bowl included garlic, lime, sweet soy glaze, sesame seeds, sweet Thai chili sauce, shredded carrots, jasmine rice, sesame dressing, and 10 ounces of ground pork. You need to bring the mayo. And finally, the chicken scallopini included potatoes, broccoli, which I substituted with green beans, yet I still got this broccoli too for some reason, garlic, a lemon, sour cream, 10 ounces of chicken cutlets, and chicken stock concentrate. Now, it's possible that they included the broccoli to make up for the missing potatoes, but I can't confirm that, and even if they did, broccoli and potatoes are 2 very different things. Now, enough with the unboxing, because you know the question on all of our minds is, how does it taste? And I'm hungry as usual, so let's get these meals cooked. To the table! Normally I record the audio for this part in real time along with Mini-Me, which I know a lot of you enjoy, but that means waiting until it's quiet enough, or I'm alone, to cook and taste the food, and that causes a lot of delays. I'd rather get these reviews out to you more quickly, so this year I decided to speak over the footage instead like I do for my grocery and snack reviews. Mini-Me will continue to make an appearance here and there, but not today. And as always, I'll be rating each recipe by taste, smell, texture, and repeatability, meaning would I eat it again? Starting with the white bean tomato stew. I used a small bowl that holds 3 cups of liquid, so that should give you an idea of how much stew is in here. It's about 1.5 cups. And as a reminder, the recipe was for 2 servings, but this is 1 serving, so I've got another bowl put away. For taste, I give this a 4 out of 5 because it was delicious. It had a nice balance of sweet and acidic from the tomatoes and garlic, and while I don't hate tomato soup, I'm not a huge fan of it, so I worried that this would be too tomato-y for me. It wasn't. The grassy pop of the scallions and the saltiness of the feta really helped. I also worried that adding Italian herbs would make it taste like aromatic pizza sauce, and the herbs did stand out, but not in a way that was unpleasant. I think the rest of the ingredients, like the beans, rounded it out. I will say that I preferred it with the garlic bread, because something about the butter and the neutrality of the white bread, as opposed to any other kind of bread, brought it all together. So I took a point off for taste just because the stew wasn't as good without it. For texture, 5 out of 5. I had to reduce the stew much longer than recommended to get the consistency I wanted, so if I made it again, I might add a little less liquid than they stated, but it was still great. The beans were creamy to bite into while still having bite, and the different textures with the chunks of tomato and cheese made it really hearty. The bread was also toasted just right, not only for dipping, but for taste. How much you toast the bread before giving it the garlic butter treatment absolutely makes a difference, because I tried toasting the bread a little less next time and it didn't taste anywhere as good. As for the smell, that wasn't anything to write home about, but it was more tomato forward than it tasted, so I'll give that a 3 out of 5. And for repeatability, would I eat this again? Yes. It tasted more complex than it was, and even though I made enough for what they call 2 servings, I somehow got 4 meals out of it. Great value, great taste. Next up is the Tex-Mex marinated chicken tacos. I do have taco stands, but they aren't here at the moment, so excuse the presentation. Since they sent 6 tortillas, I divided everything up equally between them, then treated 3 as 1 serving. And these were small 6-inch tortillas, so the portion was more like an appetizer than a meal. For flavor, I gave it a 3 out of 5. It had a mild, earthy spice from the Tex-Mex paste that didn't do much for me, and there wasn't that bright chili and lime combination I enjoy from fresh tacos like this. The onion sauteed with it felt like a waste because I got none of it in texture or flavor, and the amount of sour cream they provided was paltry. I'd also give it a 3 out of 5 for texture. The chicken was fine, but the ingredients together didn't create that juicy bite I like in a taco. It all felt kind of dry, and like each ingredient lost its identity in the mix. It could have been chicken and nothing else, and I don't think I would have noticed a difference. As for the smell, that was okay, I guess, and I'd maybe give it a 4 out of 5 just because I love the smell of lime. But for repeatability, would I buy this again? No. Its taste was pretty middling, and for the portion size and effort that went into it, I'd much rather have something else. Next is the oven-baked crispy sesame parm chicken, which I was excited to try because I love the fact that these companies are incorporating more of these easy bake situations. I didn't bother removing half of this to only show you 1 serving because I wanted you to see exactly how it came out of the oven, so this is 2 servings. I'll say right away that the flavor was 5 out of 5. Not only was it super delicious, it was so delicious I was kind of surprised. I just wasn't expecting something with this much flavor. It said to pack the panko parm mixture on the top side of the chicken only, and so I worried that it would taste one-sided, and it didn't. It was chickeny and savory and great. The slaw underneath was also delicious thanks to it cooking in that sesame dressing and chicken juices. And I wasn't sure what I'd think about the slaw because I've never prepared slaw in this way, but it was so good that I decided to add cooking slaw like this to my repertoire. I was even okay with the edamame, which I notoriously hate. Looking at the amount of vegetables and the amount of dressing they provided, I thought it wouldn't be enough to coat the slaw, but it was. And since the dressing they used is one you can buy at the grocery, if you really like this specific taste, you can easily replicate it. For texture, I also gave it a 5 out of 5. Since I'm reviewing the recipes, not just the food, I've mentioned in the past that when they give a range of time to do something, I always choose the longest time just to see if it would be too much. And I was afraid the chicken would be overcooked, but it was perfect. Juicy with a nice browned crust. The veggies were tender and so satisfying to bite into. But heads up if you get this or a similar oven bake, the instructions said to mix the slaw inside the tray, but there was so much of it that it filled the tray all the way to the top. So mixing or tossing it wouldn't have been possible without flicking a bunch of it onto the counter. I mixed it in a separate bowl instead, then poured it into the tray, and I would recommend you doing the same. For smell, I don't know, it was kind of like homey and comforting, so 4 out of 5 for whiff. It was also really filling, and it had the best combination of textures and flavors so far. The best part is that the tray is sturdy and thicker than the cheap kind you buy around Thanksgiving that, bends when you put something in it, so you use it for sides that one time and it feels like it's spent. And I love that because I usually bake in large batches, so I don't own any baking pans this small. This was 10 by 8, so I washed it out after transferring the food to a container and kept it. Repeatability should be obvious here. Would I eat this again? Absolutely. In fact, if all of their oven-baked meals are this good, I'd get at least 1 each week and stock up on the trays while I'm at it. Next is the sweet sesame pork bowl, and I'll get this one out of the way early. 5 across the board. Smells great, tastes great, texture is great, and not only would I get it again, it's simple enough that I'm looking forward to making my own version. In terms of texture, the carrots cook down to the perfect tenderness for me, where they don't snap like they're still raw, but they're not mushy either. They just have a light, bendy crunch that contrasts really well with the soft rice. For the rice, it said to use a small pot, which is relative, so I was curious to see how it would turn out in mine, which is a little 7-inch stainless steel, and it came out fine. Not soggy, not dry. If I had to take off a point, it would be for the ingredients more than the recipe itself. You were supposed to use some of the juice from the limes while cooking, but I could barely get anything out of the lime they provided, so I wouldn't expect much unless you have one of those squeezy tools to get the absolute max that you can. I could still taste the influence, but I think you'll get the most impact by adding a splash of lime to it when it's on your plate instead. You'll see that I tried to do that and couldn't get any out, but a piece of the lime did fall onto the plate, so I ate that with the pork and it pushed the flavor into another dimension. The brightness and acidity also cut through some of the richness of the chili mayo on top, which I could happily dial back to make the meal feel lighter. I actually couldn't finish the whole thing in one sitting, and I wonder if my stomach would have welcomed more of it without the mayo. The recipe also called for adding lime zest to the rice. Don't bother. For the chili mayo, it said to mix the sweet Thai chili and mayo to taste, and since I wanted the biggest bang for my buck, I used the whole packet. For reference, the sweet Thai by itself tasted kind of like the duck sauce packets you get with the Chinese takeout, only a little less sweet and with a hint of pepper. Given how perfect and subtle it was, I'd recommend using the whole packet as well, but maybe with a little less mayo to make it more drizzly and less heavy. Also, if you've been here for a while, you'll notice that in these reviews, I constantly emphasize that what I'm showing you is however many servings, so you know how much food you're getting. It's also why I try to use the same 11-inch white plate each time. It's so you can visually compare the amounts. What I never do is show you the other serving if I already separated it out, so I decided to do it just this once so you know I'm not lying about the portions. So here's the half that I plated alongside the other half that I put in a container for later. And that's what I always do with these meal kit reviews. I cook the meal, put one serving away, and plate the other. The exception is stuff like the oven bake, where I don't separate the servings first. Next is the smothered and stuffed meatloaf, and this is one serving with a reminder that it should also have had roasted potato wedges. The smell was neither good nor bad, except counting the sharpness of the mustardy ketchup glaze, which I happen to like because of how the acidity tickles your nose. So 4 out of 5 for whiff. For flavor, I really can't fault it for anything, so I'm gonna have to say 5 out of 5. The amount of mustard and ketchup made it bright and tangy. The pepper jack cheese inside added an unexpected bite without taking away from that traditional meatloaf flavor, and I didn't think I'd like it filled with cheese, but it was good. The problem was texture, which I'd give a 3 out of 5 or maybe even a 2. The cheese did add a nice chewiness, but the peppers weren't as tender as I'd like for the length of times they recommended, which again I only stuck to for the review. I'd normally cook them down more. The big thing was that the beef was mushy rather than meaty and crumbly like I'd expect from meatloaf, likely because of the soaked bread used as a binder rather than something like panko. So if you try this meal, save that slice of bread for breakfast and use breadcrumbs or something else instead. Having said that, it was still very tasty and I enjoyed eating it, but for repeatability, would I get this again? Probably not. Mainly because it's such a simple recipe that you can just make this if you want it and do it better with just as little effort. Finally, we have the chicken scallopini. I substituted the broccoli with green beans because I eat broccoli enough and didn't want any more of it. Right out of the gate, the smell was bright and citrusy, so 4 out of 5 for whiff. And I'll give it the same 4 out of 5 for flavor. The scallions and lemon juice made this dish. It actually reminded me of scampi sauce. A lot of flavor done with very little. But as someone who doesn't typically like lemon flavored meats, I tend to really love it when I first have it, then like it less the next time. And that happened here, which is the only reason I deducted a point. It was still delicious, but it didn't taste quite as good as leftovers. For texture, 5 out of 5. The potatoes were perfectly roasted with a nice crisp on the outside and fluffiness on the inside. The green beans were my kind of tender with that almost sauteed shrivel to them, even though they were baked, and they had just the right amount of char. As for the star of the show, the chicken was super tender and juicy, and the portion size is good for me. So for repeatability, would I eat it again? The fact that it's a lemony dish meant I would have leaned towards no, despite it being really yummy, but I'm gonna say yes, mainly because when I do these reviews, I find that the quality of the proteins is a bit higher than what I'd usually get at my grocery for the same price. And I can't knock having a tasty chicken dish of this quality for this cheap. Getting into my final thoughts, I didn't know what to expect from EveryPlate, and I was pleasantly surprised. Not just with the amount of customization you can do, but with the recipes themselves. They were all very simple, but they had a lot of impact, and there were no weird additions like some services have that made the recipes less universal, like spaghetti with raisins or something. I also think they were beginner friendly. I mentioned this once in an old review where my comment was misconstrued as me not understanding that you should layer flavor by seasoning different things at different times throughout the cooking process, but I've met a lot of people over the years who can't cook, and when they start following recipes, they seem to struggle most with steps that require them to use their own judgment, because they don't cook, so they don't know how much of something to use when given vague instructions like season with salt. As a result, I'm never surprised when they tell me they tried to make something for the first time and it was good, but it was too salty or too bland, because the seasoning is the easiest thing to screw up. So when a company targets people who consider themselves to be home chefs, I find recipes with more complex instructions or that leave you to your own devices to be appropriate. But when it's a company that tries to market to people who want to learn, or they emphasize how cheap and easy their meals are to make, I question recipes saying to season things repeatedly, not because I don't know why or how, but because there's a good chance a lot of the people interested in their service don't. So I think recipes that provide specific amounts or that pre-measure the seasoning, only asking you to season stuff to taste at the end, are less problematic for newcomers, and I think EveryPlate was a good balance of both. It's also really easy to cancel, but they do that annoying retention thing where you have to click that you want to cancel, then choose why you're canceling, then type your feedback on the service before it will make the final deactivation button clickable. Also, I didn't mention this, but after placing the order, I went in and skipped the next 2 weeks by clicking on them in the menu screen. Because one issue I have is that these companies don't really highlight upfront what the deadline is for not having another box sent. I don't remember which company it was, but with one of my reviews, I was charged for the next box the day after I signed up and paid for the first one. And they acted like they couldn't stop the delivery, though if I recall correctly, they did refund me. So to avoid anything like that ever happening again, I've made sure to skip a few weeks right after ordering for every review since. Then I cancel later on. Anyway, overall, my final verdict based just on this experience would be that you should give EveryPlate a try. I wanted to review it for you guys because of its pricing, since I know things are tough out there. So I'm genuinely happy to report that minus them depriving me of my Tatoes, this was great. Just keep an eye on the shipping, since I don't know how easy a problem like the box being delivered to the wrong address would be to resolve with the carrier they use. And since this is my first review back, I want to mention something I've noticed. Watching big channels of any type who happen to be sponsored by the kind of companies I review, I've seen a shift in them talking more about the kind of details I cover when doing their ad reads. And I'm not suggesting that this shift is because of the visibility of my reviews and all the wonderful feedback you guys give, because I'm sure there are plenty of channels like mine that existed well before mine. But seeing the way big channels advertise these companies made me want to again ask that you subscribe to help me reach 1,000 subs. Because while they're getting paid to review these services, I'm reviewing them for free and spending my own money to do it. Monetizing my channel would make it more sustainable without the need to have sponsors, and it costs you nothing except clicking subscribe. So whether it's my channel or someone else's, remember that small channels can only do so much without your engagement and support. And while the algorithm will show you our videos regardless, making it feel like subscribing doesn't matter, it does to us. There's still so much that this platform hides behind subscriber counts, including monetization. So if you like what I'm doing, subscribe to the channel, and hopefully I'll reach 1,000 subs before I'm 100 years old. While I wait, let me know what your experience has been with EveryPlate. A link to their site is in the box. Thanks so much for watching MBM, and I'll see you snackies when I'm backies.